Welcome to this new how-to. In this how-to, we're gonna look at how you can start the engines, or the 3 engines, of the retrofit version of the Fokker F VII aircraft. You can see that we're currently being parked, right? We're standing on one of the ramps. You can see 3 engines compared to the single engine version, which we looked at earlier, or also posted a video about. So there are a lot of differences. First of all, the retrofit is, I would say, kind of a special edition, right? It has all the modern, I would say, features which you are expecting in, I would say, aircraft from nowadays. You can see that the panel behind us, although it didn't do anything in the one or in the single engine version, is completely removed. So everything is here and on the top. So on the top, you will find the electricity part, right? So you need to switch on the battery. As soon as you switch on the battery, you can see that this one, I would say, increases, right? You can also see that the BIS power status now changes, and you can change the dim status, so you can make it really, I would say, bright, or you can make it, I would say, less bright by switching those buttons. Once you've done that, you need to make sure that the alternators are started, and you can see that if you turn on the left one, it goes to 40, but if you switch on the other one, you can see that they're leveling out, so both 20, which is nice. On this electrical part, there are some other options which you need to use. For example, let's say there's the strobe which you can switch on, and there are the nav lights. In addition to that, there's the pitot heat which you can switch on. All the other ones are fuses and you don't need to touch them. On this part, you will find the engine, and the engine contains several interesting buttons besides the, I would say, fuses which you might want to replace, but that's not necessary to do in Flight Simulator. There are also a lot of buttons, and they're divided per engine, right? So this part is for the left engine, this part is for the center engine, and this part is for the right engine. And it contains, I'd say, several important buttons. One is the engine master switch, also the ignition master switch. One is the fuel switch pump, which we need to switch on. The prime. The prime, you're using it if the engine is very cold, then you can switch it on for 20 seconds and then switch it off. And the start button to start the engine. The magneto is below that, right? So the magneto needs to be switched to both if you want to make sure that the engine starts. This is just one piece of the engine, because the other parts are here, and the other parts I refer to the fuel valves, which are by default open if you're standing still on the parking spot, right? If you start a parking spot as the start location of your flight, they will be open. You've got the anti-ice engines, which are switched off, and then we've got the propellers for the 3 engines, the throttles for the 3 engines, and then also the mixture for the 3 engines. So let's, I would say, start the aircraft, right? We already started the power stuff, so that's good. So now we're gonna continue with the engine part. And as already mentioned, right, the engines are on the top, or the engine controls are on the top. So we're gonna move a little bit using the nice option to move here. And then we're gonna switch on the engine. So you can either start with engine 1 or engine 3, and then engine 1. You can start with engine 1 or engine 3, but normally you start with engine 3, then engine 2, then engine 1. Although if you press the Ctrl E key, it will do it engine 1, engine 2, engine 3. So it's really up to you. There is a checklist included, right? So you can open the checklist, and you can see that the engine checklist is 3, 2, 1. But if you press Ctrl E, it does it 1, 2, 3. Not sure why it does that, but hey, that's how it is. So first of all, when you switch on the ignition master, you can see that the light starts to burn, and again you can, let's say, make it brighter or less bright by turning that button. You can also test it by pressing it, right? So you can press it, although it's really hard to see, but you can see that it changes the color. So that's cool. The next thing is you need to make sure that the magneto is switched to both, right? So if it's switched to both, then it's fine. And then make sure that the fuel switch pump is set to on. For some reason, there's a weird thing, because what you would expect is if you switch on a few boosts that this one would also switch on, but that does not happen. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's I would say missing feature which is coming into the aircraft. But I would have expected that if you would switch on this one, that this would also start to burn. Next, you need to make sure that you're making some changes to the throttle. So first of all, you need to make sure that the throttle is reset to the, let's say, idle state, which it currently is. Make sure that the mixture is set to full, because if the mixture is not set to full, then you're also, let's say, shutting down the fuel to the engine, right? So that's one way of shutting down the engine, is simply by, I would say, moving the mixture to almost to the leanest possible option, and then it will simply shut down. In this case, we need to make sure that it's set to rich, and you can do the same thing for the propeller, right? So you can also set it to, in this case, fine instead of coarse. There's one recommendation in the checklist, that's that you increase the throttle. However, if you've got a throttle, right, depending on the type of throttle you have, for example, I've got the Thrustmaster one, the single one, then it will increase the power of all the engines. So you might want to do that with the mouse and simply increase the throttle a bit, so that you're sure that you're not, I would say, switching the throttle on for all the engines. As mentioned, this one is already set correct, right? You can close the fuel valve by pressing it. Now, for example, if I would do it for the second engine, then you can see it, right? But that's fine for now. Once we've done that, we need to return to this nice upper panel, right? And you can do that either by using your hatch on the joystick, or by doing it manually. So once you've done that, you simply press the start button. And normally what would happen, and we can look from the outside or we can look to the right, you can see that the engine starts running, right? So the engine is running, so fine. Once the engine is running, you need to validate the meters on the, or the gauges of this nice dashboard, right? You can see, hey, this is the engine. You can see that the RPMs are higher compared to the other ones. The green pieces for both the oil temperature and the LBS are good, right? That's pressure, so nothing concerning. So once that's the case, you can decrease the throttle of this one. You will see that the RPMs will also start to decrease again, but that's good. Now we've started engine 1, we can continue with engine number 2, right? Which is the center engine. So let's do that. And the engine 2 is exactly the same procedure. So we're gonna switch on the master. You can see that it switches on. We're switching on the fuel switch. We're making sure that the magneto is set to both. And then we're gonna validate if we correctly set the other panels. Right? You can either do it like this. Second engine, or the center engine. This view, I'd say, might be less optimal, because you can see that it's, let's say, kind of harder to push the throttle completely full. So what I normally do is simply reset the view and then do it like this, because then you can make sure that they're completely set. Then we're also gonna increase the throttle a bit, and then we're gonna press the magic switch, right, which is here. And you will see that it will start the engine on the front, hopefully. So once it's on, it will switch on the light, which makes you aware, hey, the starter engine, or the start signal to the engine has been sent. And then you will see, if you go outside, that now instead of 1, 2 engines are running. You can see that the center one is running a little bit faster, but hey, that makes sense, because what we did is we set the throttle a little bit higher as recommended in the checklist. So now we're setting it back. You can see that they're, I would say, running almost the same pace. Now you can probably guess what happens next, and that's, of course, making sure that engine number 1 is also started. So we're gonna go to the same process, and this is where you see something funny happens, because now all the lights are burning. So it looks like that this button is attached to all the lights. So this is probably also a bug where they need to, I would say, fix it, that this one is connected to this light and this one is connected to this light. So that's a bug which is also, let's say, needs to be fixed in hopefully a future version. So we're gonna move the magneto to both. Then again, making sure that both the mixture and the propeller are set to full. Gonna increase the throttle a bit. Once that's done, we can continue to our, say, other process or other position. And then we're gonna switch on the engine. And then if we look left, you can see that the engine also started, right? So it's kind of normal that the starter engine goes back to, let's say, normal mode. But you can see that the fuel boost will remain on. That's, I would say, kind of normal. So wasn't hard, I would say, compared to other aircrafts, right? You need to know which order you want to do it. If you do it a different order, it results in exactly the same, to be honest. There are some things which you might want to change, right? The anti-icing of the engines. If you're flying in cold air, make sure that you're having a look at it, because else the engine will freeze and that's not good. The other items which are related to the engine are the fuel valves, right? So if we would either move these ones to, let's say, very lean, or we would move these ones to another position, then then it will be an emergency shutdown. So, right, it also says it here, emergency fuel oil shutter leveler, pull up to close. And that's kind of weird because it says pull up to close. So I would expect if it's in this position, it wouldn't be, I would say it would be closed, but it looks like that it's the other way around. So keep that in mind. So once you've done that, yeah, you can take off, right? Say, assuming that you already have permission to take off. But before doing that, you of course need to make sure that the radios can be switched on, right? So let me also show where to do that. It's, I would say, between brackets, kind of easy where to find it, because it's all in the same spot. So we already made sure that the, let's say, electrical piece was switched on, right? You can switch on the navigation lights if you want. The pitot heat is switched off. You can see that everything is fine. Then these buttons are inoperative, right? So keep that in mind also. And then if we would move to this part, you will find the avionics master. Once you switched on the avionics master, you will see that the radios are switching on and you are ready to go, except this one. And this one, the Garmin, which is used for the transponder, you need to press on to make sure that it's on. If you don't do it, it won't be active. So all the engines are now, let's say, running nicely. You can see that the other one is still a little bit high from RPM perspective, but that was due to the fact that we increased the power too much. Everything is green, everything is stable, so you're ready to take off. Here ends this how-to. In this how-to, we looked at how you can switch on the engines of this, I would say, triple engine Fokker F VII. All engines are running now, so it's ready to take off. But that's for another flight. I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you got questions or comments, then feel free to post them in the comment box below. And if you want to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting, then make sure that you're subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.